This ain't no echo chamber. We're unlocking any chain. The devil's advocate speaking, cutting through the fog. Let us explain. Yeah.
Pull up, turn the volume, let the bass ignite. Devil's advocates, that's the channel. Together we fight. They ain't here to echo what the masses preach. They challenge beliefs, putting truth within reach. Flip the script, reverse the lens, ain't no fear to provoke. Unpopular opinions, watch the stagnant water smoke. They dissect the narrative, poke holes in the facade. Sharpening the mind, ain't no truth they'll disregard.
This ain't no echo chamber. We're unlocking any chain. Devil's advocate speaking, cutting through the fog. Let us explain.
See the description hit hard, that's the blueprint to code. Not everyone likes it, but that's the path they strode. Challenging beliefs, that's the mission, the aim. Flipping tables on conventional, fanning intellectual flame. Stepping opposing view, not for conflicts embrace, but to sharpen the blade of truth. Leave no logical trace of error or bias or thoughts that just float. They dig to the core, let the arguments bloat with substance and reason, not just empty retort. They building up thinkers, a mental fortress of thought.
This ain't no echo chamber. We're unlocking any chain. Let devil's advocate speaking, cutting through the fog. Let us explain.
You don't go by always being right, that's a stagnant pool. Growth comes from questioning, breaking every rigid rule. Honest conversations, bold questions, a few uncomfortable facts. They lay it all bare, no turning back, no looking back. Seeking clarity over debate, either way you win. They push you to understand where your own thoughts begin. So hit that subscribe button, let the knowledge unfurl. The devil's advocates,
Changing your whole world.
yeah, it might make you squirm, but that's how you transcend. Listen to the devil's advocates till the very end.
Peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, do you want to know why I'm here today? It's not because I want to give you a pep talk or because I want to make you feel good about yourselves. No, I'm here to tell you the truth.
All right. Hey. Welcome in on a Friday. We're outside of our normal wheelhouse. Not only am I going at a different time tonight, moving it up an hour from where we normally do it, but instead of doing the whole Freaky Friday thing, which is a little kind of a recap of the week and whatever, we have a special guest, Ali Benevento, on. And boy, she pulled off a miracle to even be sitting behind the camera right now. She was stuck in traffic. Didn't think she was going to make it on time, but like a trooper, I don't think she ever misses a court date, although I don't think this is a court date. But anyways, I'm going to bring her up on camera right away so that we can get her back to her routine as soon as possible. But I have lots of questions for her. We're going to talk Luigi Mangione tonight. I got some questions for her. I want to talk about that recent court ruling, a new motion that Karen Agnifilo was supposed to drop, but I don't think it's dropped yet. We'll talk about a lot of things. So let me bring Ali up on stage. And Ali, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hopefully you can hear me.
Fantastic. I can, but it was like a miracle for you to even get on. I can't believe you made it.
I told you I was going to be coming in on two wheels. I made it.
Right?
Coming in hot.
You did. That's amazing. By the way, I completely screwed this up because I realized that your audience primarily is on TikTok, and I did not figure out how to get us on TikTok and YouTube at the same time. So it's just going to be, So next time, if there is a next time, I will figure out a way to get us on both places at the same time.
Sounds great.
By the way, I thought about you when I was at CrimeCon in Aurora, Colorado, and I saw Vinnie Politan several times, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh wait, hey, you talk to Allie all the time on TV." I almost like texted Allie, "Get me a hookup with Vinnie Politan so I can shake his hands." But I don't know that would have worked out anyways. But I thought about it for a brief,
Yeah.
for a brief
He
moment.
said it was a great time. He wants the crew from Court TV to all go next year when it's in Vegas. So we'll see.
Oh, very cool. And my
Yeah.
wife and I already have seats for CrimeCon in Vegas, so
Nice.
we're all
Okay.
lined up and getting that lined up right now. So hopefully you can make it as well. And
Yeah.
maybe, yeah. So tell me a little bit about, before we get into Luigi Mangione tonight, tell me a little bit about how things have been going for you. I know you've been going on Court TV a lot and all kinds of stuff. What's going on in your world?
Yeah, I've been pretty busy. I've been doing it about once a week. They've recently approached me about kind of doing it on a more regular schedule, so we're working some of that out. But it's exciting. I get to talk about cool cases across the country on a different platform. I've been enjoying it, and in my practice, I've had some pretty cool stuff going on as well. I think I've shared with you offline, working on a potential death penalty case right now with some pretty interesting issues. And we had a pretty big hearing this week. Had a lot of good press about it. It's been good, busy but good.
Yeah, well, I mean, I understand the busy thing. My work is not quite as important as yours, but I am busier than the proverbial one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. Like I am
Yeah.
just constantly busy. And so, yeah, I'm trying to cover like 5 different cases now. I mean, Idaho 4 is kind of wrapping up, and you and I started talking about Idaho. I know when you first got onto Court TV, it was actually about Koberger,
It
but then now
was.
they've kind of branched you into some more cases and stuff now, and
Yep.
you're just like a regular what do they call you? A
Contributor.
contributor.
Yep.
Nice. I
Yeah.
was curious, by the way, just since we're kind of shooting this shit on camera, do they have like very specific guidelines on how you have to have your camera set up, and do they have like a sound guy call and work you out beforehand, or you just do what you're doing with me?
No, they do. They have a very sophisticated operation, actually. They send you a link to their studio software platform, and the
Yeah,
producer will call you on the phone and get you all hooked up, audio, visual, sound checks, things like that. But they do a great job. It's a pretty well-oiled machine. It's impressive, really.
I'm gonna have to learn some tricks eventually. Although I'm just trying to concentrate on being a talking head. I don't want to have to do the production stuff behind the
Yeah.
scenes, frankly.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I wanted to talk to you a little bit. I mean, when we first started talking, you and I, it was about Luigi Mangione,
Yeah.
and then of course the case kind of dried up and was going slow as snails,
So
and right, so slow. And then all of a sudden we have some traction again as we're getting towards the end of the year. I wanted to talk to you. I'm trying to figure out where to even start. So the big moment, of course, was what would be perceived as a victory for the defense, which is
Mhm.
removing first-degree murder from Luigi Mangione because it doesn't qualify as an act of terrorism. So they've removed first-degree murder, and I have to figure that alone, barring the federal case, that alone
Mhm.
was a major victory, was it not? I mean, that was huge.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big victory. Listen, anytime you can get cases dismissed, especially serious cases like that, it's a big deal. And also, it's very unusual for a judge to have the cojones to do something like that, even in a case nobody's talking about. And so for Judge Caro to do that in such a high profile case, I was very impressed. I think that took guts. I think it was the right thing to do, but I was not sure that he would. So I was very pleased to see that he was not afraid to do depending on who you ask, the politically unpopular thing and dismiss 2 very serious charges in quite possibly the most high profile case of our time. It is a big deal, but it's not as big of a deal as I think some people are making it out to be. And the reason I say that, please don't come at me, don't jump on me. 2 things. Number 1, he's still facing life in prison for the second degree murder charge. And number 2, um, and I don't think this will happen. So again, please don't come for me. But it is not an acquittal by a jury, which means that double jeopardy has not attached as it relates to those 2 charges. So hypothetically, if there was additional evidence, or if the prosecutor's office wanted to try to take additional evidence or different evidence in front of the grand jury to try to indict those charges again, there is nothing in the law to stop him or her from doing that.
Yeah, and it's a good point. I think like you, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but I think like you, I don't think that's going to happen. Like I think
Yeah,
that's what you said as
I don't either.
well. But it's interesting to note that you have to, if we're being fair with everybody, you have to say, look, this doesn't mean it can't come back again, kind of thing. But likely, it's probably not going to happen. I don't think.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny because I it when I talked to you just briefly about coming on the show, I hadn't even told you that I thought it took a lot of the cojones for Caro to rule the way he did, and to be as vocal about the way he worded it. I mean, he was pretty strong wording, and I was like, wow, it is so cool to see a judge that is at least on the peripherally looking like he's impartial, like he's ruling the way it should be ruled, and not for personal bias because everybody's got a vendetta and everybody wants Mangione and it doesn't matter about the rule of law. So I loved seeing that. I remember when I first looked into Judge Caro, I heard that people referred to him as a bad draw. If you're a defense person, you're like, "Ooh, shit, you got Caro. It's a bad draw," because he's heavy on prosecution. However, the one thing they said about him as well was he's a really fair judge, and so he doesn't like police corruption, and he doesn't like overstepping. So I mean, I think what we saw was kind of like that. He's just fair, and so I have good respect for Caro. It was a good and a bad day in a way, because again, the other thing that he ruled on was, no, we're not going to dismiss the state case. We're going through with 2 cases, and you're just going to have to live with it. So that was kind of a negative for the defense team, because they were also hoping to just say, how about you just drop, or at least I guess stay the state case until after the federal case or whatever. And he's like, no, we're going to go forward with the state case. And so that was a loss for them in a way.
Yeah, in a way. But again, I like seeing, it's actually kind of sad that we're as excited as we are that a judge does the right things. I do think that it was the legally appropriate thing. It just was. Listen, and not to like pat myself on the back, but I'm going to pat myself on the back for a second, because those terrorism charges were horseshit from the beginning. And I've said that from the jump. That was a stretch. I thought it was nonsense. I think even the prosecutor probably didn't really believe in it. I mean, it to me was more outrageous than than the Southern District of New York charging Diddy with under RICO. Like, I also thought that was a stretch, and we see how that turned out. So I think the prosecution may have been saved from some embarrassment, because I think it was entirely possible that a jury was like, I don't think so. But it's going back to my original point. It's kind of sad that we're like applauding a judge for doing
the right thing.
But unfortunately, especially in this political climate, it's really hard for judges to do the right thing, because they face so much pressure and so much scrutiny politically, and it's not supposed to be that way. So kudos to Judge Caro.
Yeah, for sure. And you don't have to comment on this, but so you don't have to comment on this. But for me, I feel like Judge Hippler, in contrast, in the Koberger case, was not a fair judge. That, in my opinion, that wasn't a fair judge. But that's my personal feelings on that. I do want to ask you about the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and their delaying ruling on the arrest of Luigi Mangione in the first place. It's been almost a year. And I think they might be under a ticking time clock that they have to charge him or drop the case if they fail to make a ruling in a year. So now all of a sudden they have a date, I think, of November 14th or something like that. Is that, can you speak to that more about the whole, like, was that judge being cowardly and not wanting to rule on the biggest piece of thing, which is whether or not the evidence is going to be legal in the first place? Because I mean, that seems like where they're dragging their feet. They don't want to rule on it and blow the case for the federal government and the state government, or in New York, by just ignoring that, hey, that whole arrest might have been illegal in the first place.
Yeah. I don't know. It's so hard. So I feel like a lot of that is so jurisdiction specific. I don't practice law in Pennsylvania, so I don't know. Are they intentionally delaying? Are they just do they just have a crappy docket? Are they traditionally this slow? I don't know the answers to those questions. I can say it doesn't surprise me that it's taking a long time, but it is a really long time, and it is, it has the eyes of the world on it. Everybody's kind of waiting. Okay, what's Pennsylvania going to do? I don't know. I realize that's not a good answer, but I don't know how to answer that, because I'm just not specific with the jurisdiction, and I do feel like that matters. Yeah, I think a Pennsylvania practitioner might be able to weigh in a little bit better on that.
Fair. I mean, my opinion has been that they were didn't want to rule on it because it's so enormous that they were like just delaying it. But I could be wrong. But I want to ask you another opinion about this. My interpretation of what happened was Thomas Dickey did a weird move in Commonwealth of Pennsylvania where he basically said, he made that habeas corpus thing and said, look, you have the first right to Luigi Mangione. You were the one that arrested him. And so you have a right to either charge him or let him go. And furthermore, you are required, this is the way I interpret it. Now, you can correct me when I'm done. You are required by law to at least request that they release Luigi Mangione so that he can come appear in person in Pennsylvania. And at first I thought they're just going to tell him to pack sand. But to my surprise, the district attorney in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania actually basically said, you're right. We formally request Luigi Mangione to be brought to Pennsylvania, and we'll pay for his transportation to Luigi Mangione.
But they did it in state court, and that's a federal writ. They should have done it in federal court. So I'm going to call BS on that. I think they did it because they felt like they had to do something. But that writ was is appropriately brought in federal court. And I believe that Thomas Dickey actually made that point in one of his briefs early on. Maybe, don't quote me. I don't have anything in front of me.
And in essence, last I heard, the marshals already had said they're not going to allow Luigi Mangione to go in person. That's one of the other questions I wanted to ask you. I don't know what it means. So it seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong about this, that the law basically states you have the right to appear before your accusers, and that's been interpreted, or the way Dickey's interpreting is that means in person. You have the right to be there in person. But that part of the argument seems to be Zoom call is good enough. It's the same thing as being in person. And so are we setting a precedence if they say that letter of the law says you have the right to face your accusers, but on Zoom call is good enough, or not? Is that even?
I hope not. I hope not. I hate Zoom court. Zoom court's terrible. Have you ever, I mean, I've tried to cross-examine a witness on Zoom. It's awful.
Yeah.
I just, there's no substitute. I mean, it got us through COVID without completely destroying the docket. But I mean, yeah, I mean, that could be bad precedent, but I don't like it. I don't like Zoom.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, just because they claim he was unavailable doesn't make him unavailable, which was Thomas Dickey's point. He's like, you can't say that and make it so. And that's what they tried to do, is to just declare him unavailable. Well, he's not. You all just don't want to. They didn't want to get involved in the tug of war between the state cases and the federal cases. And so everybody's being belligerent about who has primary custody and whether or not the U.S. Marshal Service is going to cooperate. But I believe Joel Seideman's office actually said, listen, we're going to instruct the Marshal Service not to transport him.
Right. And this is the part that I'm so confused about with this whole 3 jurisdictions all wanting Luigi Mangione. It's weird to me on the outside that the federal government is holding Luigi Mangione when the first person who really has the right to try him is a Commonwealth, and then the state supposedly going to go next, but yet the person holding him is the federal government and deciding where he's going to be allowed to go when other sovereigns are in the first positions. It's just weird to me.
But the other side of that is, if I'm Luigi or Luigi's lawyers, I want him in federal custody. Like, he's in a better spot than he would be. So it's like, how much do you really want to push on that? Because all things considered, you want to be in the custody of the Marshal Service versus the custody of the Commonwealth or Manhattan DA's office.
Yeah, and I think I know why, but do you want to elaborate for people why that is, why it's better for Mangione to be in federal custody rather than the state,
Because believe it or not, the feds are very efficient and streamlined and great to deal with on just this one thing: prisoners and courts. Everything else, the federal government is totally dysfunctional. But on this one point, they actually do it better than the state. Typically speaking, the conditions are better. Typically speaking, the communication and the ease of movement and transportation and getting what you need and want when you're detained pending a case is everything's easier when you're in federal custody. Everything. And that actually rings true for federal prison too, not just pretrial detention. Everything is so much better. Go break a federal law. Don't break state law.
And I remember the judge kind of making a comment about, well, if you want him out of federal custody, we can send him to Rikers, and people were like, no, let's not send Luigi to Rikers. That doesn't sound like a good idea.
Or some shithole Pennsylvania jail. Who knows what that looks like in Altoona?
Right. Right.
Never been there, but
I'm not sure which order to put this in, but what I want to get to is that discussion about the possibility of the defense using, because they're still trying to decide whether they're going to use some kind of emotional disturbance, mental health crisis, or something like that, which I didn't think was going to be on the table this late in the game, but apparently it is still on the table. But I want to talk, before we get back to that, about that. Karen Agnifilo, it was on her website, luigimangione.info.com. She filed a letter to the judge asking for essentially permission to exceed the length, right, of a document, because she wanted to submit a 95-page argument against the death penalty again. And it feels like she's already made her and Avi Moskowitz have already made more than one motion arguing against the death penalty. So I'm not sure what this is new, but she wanted to file a new 95-page document. And then that letter's gone now from the website. I know I saw it. I know I read it. It's gone now, but it is in a footnote. It's on the footnote of the latest letter, which was the new thing that came out on. And in fact, I'll put this on screen real quick. I'm going to put this on screen, add this to stage, and I'm going to move us to this. Oh, let's not do that. Let's put that on stage. And what about getting Allie up here with me? There we go. All right, let me show you here. So on the main page, again, right here in the federal cases, there was a letter from Karen asking for the right to exceed the number of pages. But then she filed this motion where basically the defense is asking to change some of the dates. So originally they had a defense date of September 26, and she's asked to move it out a little bit. And that was granted by the judge. And in the footnote, there was just this comment about they're still waiting for this submission today, Friday, September 19th. That's today, right? So I haven't.
But they have till midnight because it's a federal filing. So the date runs through 11:59 Eastern Standard Time.
All right. So all you have to do is stay up a little bit later, because when it drops, I want you to come immediately on here and talk about 95 pages and have it ready to go. So
well, as long as it's 11:59 my time and not yours, I can maybe make it.
So I just wanted to talk about. Let's talk about the death penalty thing. So one, they got first-degree murder removed in the state case, and now they're going for a big, huge. Let's talk about getting death removed, the death penalty on the federal case as well. If that's successful, that leaves Luigi Mangione facing second-degree murder in the state. From what I understand, and this is like a little nuanced, maybe you can clarify if you know this, but it seems like the federal government doesn't have what we call first and second-degree murder. They have murder with aggravating circumstances, which essentially makes it that death penalty kind of case, right? So if they remove the death penalty on the federal side, and all you're left with,
ain't happening.
Like it's a small thing, is second-degree murder on the state side. Does that change whether or not Karen Agnifilo goes for an EED defense or some kind of mental disturbance, because death is no longer on the line on the federal side, and they got they got the life in prison off on that side, and now they can go for reducing it to manslaughter and try to do that? Or how do you think that plays in?
I don't know, because we really don't have a whole lot of insight as to what the defense strategy is going to be. I know we talked about this really early on. We don't know if Karen's defense is going to be, it wasn't him. That wasn't Luigi Mangione on video. He did not shoot Brian Thompson. Or if it's going to be, yeah, he did it, and that SOB needed killing. It's that whole argument for jury nullification, or putting the healthcare industry at large on trial. So those are two very different defenses, and we don't know in which direction they're going to go. And so to me, her decision to ask the court for additional time to give notice on some of these potential psych defenses, if I'm an outsider looking in, might be her trying to buy some time to maybe figure out how they're going to do this, buy some time while they waited to see whether one of the judges was going to make a decision about whether the state case could be stayed, whether Judge Caro was going to stay the state case before the federal case. Now that she knows that, maybe they can start having some more substantive conversations about what their defense is going to be. I don't know that is going to be dependent on what the potential penalty is. Now, obviously that affects or impacts how serious the case is, but your defense is your defense, and you don't build your defense around the potential consequences. You build your defense around the facts of the case and the evidence that the government has produced to you and what they can and can't prove.
Yeah, and this is difficult. I had some people get really, really mad at me, of my followers, because I said it looks like there's a possibility that Karen will go for an EED type defense and an extreme emotional duress and explain what happened. And in a way, I said that could be, again, I'm going to get kicked in the teeth for saying this. It could be a good thing in the sense that allows the healthcare system to be put on trial, because you have to explain to a jury why Luigi Mangione got to the place where that was his only decision that he felt was reasonable. And a jury would have to understand that. So therefore, it allows you to put the healthcare system on trial. But a lot of people hated that. They're like, well, Karen will never turn on her client and say that he did it when he didn't do it. And I'm like, I'm not sure how to feel about that, because again, we don't know. Karen's seen a lot more discovery than we do. So maybe she knows that they've got enough to convict her guy, or I don't know.
We've seen this much discovery. That's what people don't understand. The things that you
Right.
read in the media, the stuff that we see on the internet, that is not discovery. Only Karen and Luigi and their team have access to the criminal discovery that's been produced in any of these cases. That information has not been made public. We also don't know the conversations that she is having with Luigi behind closed doors. That is privileged. It's entirely possible. And now they're all going to come for me too, Lee, because listen, I'm about to say this. It is entirely possible that Luigi looked at Karen and said, listen, yeah, I did it. That was me. You got me.
Right.
However, let me tell you why. Okay.
Right.
Or maybe he could say, listen, they've got this is upsetting. They've got the wrong guy. It wasn't me. I swear to God, I'm being framed. We don't know the answers to those questions. So it's not a matter of turning on her client. I mean, that's so like, what?
Right.
The client is the boss. And our job as lawyers is to advise the client with our knowledge and our experience and our insights and our emotional detachment from the case because Luigi is emotionally invested in the case to advise the client about the best path forward under real circumstances, not pie in the sky shit. So
Yeah.
we don't know what those conversations entailed. We don't know what that discovery shows. We don't know their strategy. And so it is possible that she may raise that as a defense. And that's not a betrayal of her client. That's actually doing her client right.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
yeah, you don't want to walk your client into a buzzsaw, especially when you've got the freaking death penalty on the table. You have to mitigate your client's circumstances. Always, always what's in the best interest of the client.
Yeah, and that's important because I mean, a lot of people acted like she was, she wouldn't betray her client, and that was the point. Like that decision, his attorney doesn't make the decision for him on how he's going to plead. That's a conversation, and he has to agree with what their defense is going to be. So if he says, "Look, I didn't do it," and you're not going to enter a guilty plea for me, or say I'm insane when I'm not, or anything like that, that's not something that she just decides on her own. So it wouldn't be Karen betraying her client, first of all.
No.
And
In
second
fact,
of all,
lots of times we have to do things that our clients don't. Lots of times we have to do things that we don't want to do because our clients want us to do them. Like we might say, I'm advising you to do A, and the client's like, nah, bruh, I want to do B, and I'm not changing my mind. And I'm like, well, hell, I'm not going to say I told you so when it all blows up, but okay. And you got to do what the client asks, whether it's what you think or not. And they do that in an informed way. You advise them, but ultimately that client is the boss. Luigi's the boss. Karen might seem like she's calling the shots, but she's got to do what Luigi tells her to do. Hopefully he's listening to her because she's awesome. But
it tickles my soul to hear you go straight up gangster with me on the
sorry.
video. That's amazing. No, it's great. I love it because you're so down to earth. It's amazing. So one of the things I'm going to see if I can try to get this right. This is what the heart of the issue I said earlier. We talked about this before. When Karen said early on, it's not fair to my client to have two different jurisdictions basically trying to accuse or convict him on the same set of crimes, essentially, but the defense in one case might prejudice him in the other. Because again, if, for example, she were to say in the state case, hey, look, yeah, he did it, but here's why he did it, and I think a jury will be sympathetic to it and give him manslaughter, she screwed herself in the federal case because it's essentially admitting he did it, and they don't have the EEE defense that they can mitigate something down on. So she her argument, I think, was partly to that, which is that I have to fight it the same way in both cases when you try and you're taking options off the table, and every attorney probably wants as many options on the table as you can, right?
Yeah, I didn't. Judge Caro kind of dismissed that out of hand a little bit, but here's the thing: this is a situation that happens so rarely that somebody. Hold on, let me back up. I'm getting ahead of myself. This is a situation that happens so rarely in that you very rarely have somebody charged in state court and charged in federal court for the same course of conduct where one jurisdiction doesn't say, all right, you got it. Okay, you take him. Luigi is facing the same prosecution essentially for the same act in two different courts. Add on to that the extra layer of, holy crap, the stakes are high because this is a death penalty case. So I understand Karen's frustration. I also understand that Judge Caro maybe not fully appreciating what she's trying to say. And I don't mean to say that he's not smart. He gets it.
Yeah.
But probably not a whole lot of precedent for this sort of situation because it happens so rarely. I use the example of a drug case. Happens all the time. Somebody gets popped with, 14 keys of cocaine and it's state authorities. Well, the feds may come in and also want to charge him under federal law. So then he's charged under state law, charged under federal law. 99 times out of 100, the feds are going to back off and let the state handle it, or the state's going to let the feds take it over. It very rarely ever happens to where they're charged in both places. So I think Karen has a good point. I think her reasoning and her logic is sound. I kind of feel her frustration in her writings. I think it's legitimate. I wish that Judge Caro had almost like not addressed it at all and said, hey, I'm not going to reach it, because now I feel like it's going to be very difficult for anybody to change their mind, because he's already kind of made a decision about it and said, hey, this isn't the big deal that you're making it. I think it is a big deal.
And he did, and the way I interpreted it, and again, maybe I'm getting over my head, but the way I interpreted it is he did cite kind of a law. I can't remember how it was worded. Basically, was something to the effect of, it's not double jeopardy because each sovereign has its own set of rules and circumstances, and therefore each one can bring the charges against him individually because they have different sets of laws. So, I mean,
and that's true.
That was his
All
rationale.
of that is true. Well, and it's true. I mean, but I think he's kind of missing the nuance. I think he's missing the point. And I didn't love that Karen brought that argument under the umbrella of double jeopardy, because I knew that was going to get dismissed out of hand, because the Supreme Court, the law is very clear on that.
Yeah.
You have things that are illegal under state law and federal law. It's not.
Yeah.
And she knows that. She just, she's got to zealously advocate.
So one thing I want to do is I don't want to miss the opportunity. There's lots of questions that are piling up on the side. Yeah. So what I would do is I think you and I have bantered enough back and forth. Let me go up to the top, and then I will find some questions and pin them to the screen so that we can take viewers' questions. Let me look for something. I'm going to go from the very beginning of the show to see if there's something that maybe jumped out. So hold on.
Okay. And I'm sorry for coughing in everybody's ear.
Oh, Thank you. So by the way, you're getting you got lots of love. Oh my God, everybody's so excited to see Allie. They're excited.
I'm so excited
That's
to see
in here
everybody.
all the time. We got somebody from Brooksville, Florida. Fantastic. Thank you for coming in. We've got, let's see, here we go. 1-1. This 1-1, by the way, is NYPD police officer who's been supporting the show for a long time. He's a super supporter of mine. What was the legal basis for Judge Caro's decision to drop the terrorism-related murder charges?
They could not prove, even to grand jury standards, they could not prove terroristic intent. And so at the grand jury phase, the prosecution must prove to a lower standard, which is probable cause or reasonable cause to believe that something is true, versus at a jury stage when it must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. The judge is saying that you have reasonable doubt, really high standard, probable cause, really low standard. Even by the low standard, the state did not have any evidence that was sufficient to establish terroristic intent. They were saying that the state was really reaching and reading things into pieces of evidence that did not seem to be a fair or accurate reading into those pieces of evidence. And because that what they were relying on for terroristic intent was what the judge characterized as legally insufficient, that the grand jury got that wrong, and the judge was going to act as a check on the grand jury system and dismiss those by saying there was no legal basis, even under the lower standard, to establish terroristic intent. Hope that was.
Yeah, and it was a great ruling by the judge. Like you said, he did the right thing, I think, in that one. This comment, I'm going to riff on this comment. About three different actors on video supposed to be Luigi. Same exact outfit. Shooter looks like Liam Neeson. So it does bring that question. There's an argument that could be made. We did not see. A lot of people will say, you saw Luigi Mangione do it. No, you did not. You saw somebody in a mask shoot Brian Thompson. You don't know that it's Luigi Mangione. That's the whole argument here at the case. So we still don't know if Karen's going to say that wasn't the guy. That's not Luigi Mangione. Now, the tricky part is they keep adding things in. Like we have his fingerprints at the scene. We have the ballistics that match the gun in Pennsylvania, which, by the way, could be fruit of the poisonous tree. We don't even know if they're going to be able to use that gun. But they're like, the ballistics match, the fingerprints match, the DNA matches. He left his DNA on gum in the park. We've got him 6 Ways to Sunday. We know it's Luigi Mangione.
Central Park. It's Manhattan. There's DNA everywhere. All kinds.
Right.
All kinds.
So, I mean, I guess at the end of the day is, again, I guess for those, is there still in your mind, a possibility that Karen's going to say, look, you got the wrong guy. It wasn't Luigi
Yeah.
Mangione. Prove it. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, again, we don't have access to all the discovery. There may be some smoking gun in there, and I don't mean a literal gun. Like there could be some like really good insurmountable piece of evidence. We don't know about it, but based on what's been released to the media, what we know, all the things that we don't know, like you just said, a man in a mask shot Brian Thompson in the middle of Manhattan. Whether that was Luigi, that is the government's burden to prove identity beyond a reasonable doubt. They have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. So Karen may be challenging it on those grounds. We don't know.
I got to tease the same guy, Dan, though. However, he said,
No,
this is a
Marco.
family show.
Sorry, Dan.
No, Dan, this is not a family show. I assure you. When I'm alone, I'm even worse. When Allie's on here, it's not much better. So yeah, this is not a family show. Let's see here.
I thought cojones was like a nice
it is a nice way. You didn't. Yeah, I would have said it much more bluntly. Cojones, I thought it was pretty much soft. Let's see. Why was Mangione's case considered different from the one involving the Buffalo grocery store shooter, who was convicted under domestic terrorism statute? Do you know about that case?
Oh, not only do I know about that case, but that shooting happened 2 blocks from where I was born. Yeah, I remember that grocery store. I do not know the specific facts of that, or I know the facts of that case. I don't know what basis they had to charge that shooter under the domestic terrorism statute. What I'd have to do is pull those documents down from off of Pacer to kind of look at what their legal basis was. Why was it considered different? When you say why was it considered different, do you mean in terms of the judge finding it legally insufficient? Can I ask a follow-up question on that?
You could, except for then I would have to pan all the way down to see what he responds
okay.
to.
Well, we'll put a pin in that. We'll put a pin in that.
Okay, yeah,
Assuming that's what you're asking, I think maybe I have an answer.
Okay, let me look to see if there's something new. I mean, I'm going to work my way down. Maybe by the time we get there, he'll come back to that question. So one, if you're there, make sure you phrase that this is a follow-on to that previous question. Oh, by the way, as an aside, someone said maybe we should get a convoy together and go get him and bring him to PA. I don't know why this brings me up to this point, but I felt bad. There were people that I'm pretty sure traveled to New York to go see Luigi Mangione in court. The amount of time
100%.
the amount of time he spent walking past the camera was about 10 seconds. I think the entire hearing lasted about 15 minutes. It was very, very quick.
I told people that was stupid. I did a whole video about it. I'm like, if you listen, I just got back from New York. If you want to pay $2,000 to stay in a hotel room for a night to like catch a glimpse of him and you'd get a better view from TV, like you have at it. Good Lord.
I honestly felt bad for people like, oh my gosh, like that was over so quick. And I hate to bring this up. I really do. I hate to bring this up, but I noticed Luigi looked a lot younger, had put on a little weight. He looked a little more baby faced to me. And the parents that he said, did you see that as well? Is that just
that's that?
Yeah. Was that just an
commissary
effect?
snacks? They'll get you. It's worse
Someone
than
said
the freshman 15. I'm telling
yeah,
you, it is.
He said a little bit much ramen in there, but
listen, when your currency is like Fritos and Slim Jims.
Yeah. But part of me, like, is that part of it? Like, could that be part of a defense strategy? Because he looked more like a baby. Like he took away the swagger, the confident male, and McKenna came in there looking like a young. He looked a lot younger to me. I don't know. I was like,
that's interesting. I thought he looked a little scragglier, but that's because he was in a jumpsuit.
All right. Yeah. All right. Fair enough. And so that it's completely an aside. I wasn't even going to mention it, but I don't know why that got off in there.
It didn't deter the ladies. I can tell you that.
No, it did not. What impact did Mangione's legal team's motion to suppress evidence have on the federal case? Well, it hasn't anything yet. Because
it hasn't. Nothing's happened yet. Yeah, nothing yet.
One, by the way, has a million great questions. So if we don't get anything from anybody, we can always count on him for like 12 of them. But I'm trying to find some other people that we can work in here. We won't keep it too terribly long, by the way. We'll wrap up here in about 20 minutes. Let's see. Let me see what else we got. I got a lot of just, hey, they're liking the show kind of thing. In facts, Karen knows, blah, blah, blah. There's kind of general stuff. Hold on. Unless you want to riff on something while I'm looking for something.
I'm trying to read too, but it's so tiny. I don't have my readers. I can't really see.
Someone here says,
help you.
I find it interesting that some people are so convinced he's genuinely guilty that they may be shocked come trial. I think, yeah, either way. I mean, I think there are people who think he's genuinely innocent and they may be shocked if they say, yeah, he did it, but here's why he did it. And then but conversely, they think that, the other way, which is that he's genuinely guilty, and they'll be surprised if Karen says, yeah, he didn't do it, kind of thing. So I think either way, there's going to be a fair number of people going to be shocked at how they do this.
Yeah. And I mean, it's so funny to me that people are like, he absolutely did it. Well, how do you know? Do you have access to some information the rest of us don't? And also, newsflash, you're not a jury. This is why we don't convict people in the newspaper and in the court of public opinion. How would you feel if you were accused of murder and every schmuck on the internet was putting their 2 cents in without seeing the evidence?
Do you make much? So I try to pocket my own feelings about the case, but people probably have figured out how I feel about the case. But do you make much over the fact that neither Thomas Dickey nor Karen Agnifilo seems to argue that Luigi Mangione at least had a red notebook in his backpack that was personal notes that they labeled as a manifesto? And therefore, that seems like his attorneys in both places have conceded, yes, Luigi Mangione had writings that were against the healthcare system, complaining about how it was a broken system and all these things that they said. They're not saying that was planted evidence or it wasn't his. Are they conceding that that's his writings? Because they're not arguing it. They're just saying it's not a manifesto.
Yeah, but they're also not explicitly saying his journals, are they? Aren't they just talking about the journals that have been brought to everyone's attention and that are in evidence? Did I miss something?
Good question. I thought Karen's response about the spiral notebook specifically was his personal journal.
Maybe you're right.
Feelings.
Yeah, I can't remember.
And so I don't know if that's true. So yeah, I just thought it was interesting because again, we go to we don't know if he did it or not, but then there's that whole, well, his attorneys aren't even really arguing. And it seems like the attorneys are completely moot on the confession letter that was in the backpack. Right. So there was supposed to be a letter addressed to the feds. Hey, feds, I did it. I did it alone. Just wanted to let you know I respect what you do. That was a letter that was supposedly in the backpack. And the attorneys are all fighting about whether or not it was an illegal search and seizure, which I think it was. But they're not really arguing about whether or not that letter was really there or not. And I don't know if that makes a difference or not.
I don't know.
I don't either.
I don't know on that one.
And by the way, one other additional thing that seemed to come out, and several people caught it, there was new stuff in this hearing or this ruling by Caro that said something about, and Luigi had a letter to his family. And I don't think anybody's heard about a letter to his family that was found in his belongings. So that was new that I'd never even heard. And several people said, when did that come in? I didn't hear anything about a letter to his family.
Yeah. People asked me about that too. I don't know.
Yeah.
We may not find out until trial time.
Allie, do you think Luigi had any role in writing some of the motions, like calling the health insurance murderous? Do you remember when Karen Agnifilo said that?
No, I'm sure that based on her own words, Karen is in regular contact with Luigi. And so I'm sure she talked to him about what their arguments were going to be and verified information with him and strategized with him. Do I think that he's back there drafting pieces of motions? Probably not.
Okay, let's continue to look forward to a few more questions.
But that could be a little clue or a little breadcrumb or a little insight into a possible defense down the road. I mean, to me, a characterization like that might suggest that they're taking the approach of putting the healthcare industry on trial. I don't know.
That is what I said early on in this trial when Pam Bondi came out and basically said, Luigi Mangione, I direct the government to execute Luigi Mangione, to be hard on terrorism. This is what we're going to do. If anybody deserves it, it's this guy. And then Karen's response was, you are calling this man a murderer. And despite the fact that the healthcare system is a murderous healthcare system. And I said, there you go. We're going to put the healthcare. And I remember, and it was funny because you kind of called me on it, and rightly so. You kind of said, man, it would be a hard sell to put the health insurance, on trial, because again, this is about the murder of Brian Thompson. It's not, and it would say, the healthcare system's not on trial, except if they do the mental health defense, they have to explain to a jury how he got so distraught that he decided to do this. And now you can, in my opinion, maybe put the healthcare system on trial. So
yeah, you can try.
Yeah. Was it a breadcrumb? You know, was it like you said? Was it an early breadcrumb? That's what I took it as when she said the murderous healthcare system. I was like, oh, Karen's getting ready to try to do this, and we're like, man, I don't think that would be an uphill battle to do, and it may be like a super uphill battle to do. But let's see what Michelle says. When this was an address to 1-1 directly, so maybe I should read that before I put it on the screen. All right, I'm looking just for a few more questions, and if I can't find any good ones, I'll probably have one or two for you, and then we can wrap up. Okay. Somebody says here, Robin who's one of my moderators in here, do you think that Karen is working to find potential other culprits?
That's hard for me to answer that. So most of the time, and this is somewhat jurisdiction specific, but most of the time you cannot argue what we here in South Carolina refer to as third party guilt, where you can't say somebody else must have done it. You can say I didn't do it, but to say someone else must have done it and to just throw things at some other suspect, you have to have credible evidence that they were actually involved in the crime or that they are actually guilty that you can present. Otherwise, the rules of evidence and the rules of court are not going to permit you to present evidence of third party guilt. And so the question of do I think that she's working to find other culprits? Number one, we don't know what their potential defense is going to be. Maybe Luigi has told her that it's him, in which case I don't think they're looking for anybody else. They're strategizing about how they can mitigate the situation on Luigi's behalf, or how their strategy can be to either provide a psychological explanation or to put the healthcare industry on trial. Now, if he is saying he didn't do it, then she can do her due diligence. But remember, we don't want a burden shift. It's the government's burden to prove that Luigi did it beyond a reasonable doubt. It is never, 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 not Luigi's, not any defendant's, not any defense counsel's burden to do the police or the prosecution's work for them. In other words, she doesn't have to go. If it wasn't Luigi, it ain't her job to go find out who did it. That's why we've got police and that's why we've got prosecutors. It's not his burden. And so we want to be really careful about burden shifting. Even if he argues it wasn't me, the jury legally is not permitted to ask the question, well, if it wasn't you, then who could it have been? That's not the standard. The standard is, did the government prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Luigi Mangione was the shooter of Brian Thompson? Full stop, the end. So that was a very long-winded answer, but I'm very passionate about this one. We don't burden shift. We don't know what the defense strategy is going to be. So even if he said it wasn't him, she can do her due diligence, but she's probably not going to spend a whole lot of time with it because it's not her burden. Hope that helps.
Now I'm going to make a big stretch, and you might think, okay, devil's advocates, you went too far on this one. But I'm going to ask you this. Let's say state case goes first. We know that they've removed the first degree murder charge. It's second degree murder. Let's say Karen Agnifilo goes for Luigi Mangione did it, but you have to understand why he did, effectively putting the healthcare system on trial, and that all plays out before the federal trial. Does that potentially weigh on jurors' minds when they're going into the federal case, despite the fact that it can't be mitigated? Are jurors now getting to hear why he did it and take that into consideration and be used as mitigating factors for the death penalty to say, well, we understand because we heard him explain why he did it? Like, is there any scenario in which him being able to explain to the public in the state trial would it go well for him in a jury in the federal trial?
I think it could. Well, first of all, I don't think that a Southern District of New York jury is voting for death, even if he gets convicted in federal court. I just don't.
Right.
Second of all, I don't know that I would classify it as a mitigating factor per se, but certainly Karen and her team, if it gets to the point where Luigi is found guilty in federal court and we move to the penalty phase of the trial, where the jury has to decide whether to put him to death, she is going to be arguing anything and everything to convince that jury that he should not be put to death. And you bet your ass she's going to be talking about the reason behind the crime, the larger systemic problems with the healthcare industry at that point, assuming the judge allows her to do that. But she's going to be arguing anything and everything to save his life. So yeah, I can see it.
I know this isn't, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but somebody asked, how do you think that the health insurance industry could be put on trial? Do you think he would ever take the stand? And would that be a bad idea? So let me explain briefly on how the health insurance would be put on trial. From what I understand, the EED defense means that my guy got to a point of extreme emotional distress where he made a poor choice. And what they're allowed to do is to explain to a jury. And here's the thing that's interesting from the way I read the law. The jury doesn't have to say a reasonable person would do the same thing. They just have to understand if you were Luigi Mangione, can you understand how he got to that point? In order to explain how he got to that point, in essence, you would have to say, look, I was reading all these things about denials of claims. I was seeing all of these things happen. People were dying by the thousands. I got emotionally distraught. Nobody's doing anything about it. Somebody needs to take a stand. I decided to do it. Poor choice, but that's what happened. That's how you put the healthcare system on trial, in my opinion, is you have to explain to the jury. You have an opportunity to explain to the jury how you got to the point that you thought that was a rational decision. And the jury may or not agree that that was a rational decision for anyone to make, but he would at least have that opportunity to say it, in my opinion. Now, the question is, will Luigi take the stand? What do you think? Will Luigi take the stand in his own defense, or will they keep him off the stand?
Depends on their defense strategy. I mean, if he says it wasn't him, then he might take the stand. To my knowledge, he has no prior record, so it's not like they could impeach him with a prior record, which is always a concern in any case when deciding whether the criminal defendant should take the stand. If he argues, yes, I did it, but let me tell you why, again, depending on the evidence, depending on the circumstances, the facts, maybe we don't know them all, he may have to take the stand in order to assert that type of defense. That cross-examination is going to be rough.
Here's
I
a
don't
good
feel good
question,
about that one, guys. I just don't.
What do you think we can expect from the 95-page filing? Will it mostly be constitutional arguments, or will it touch base on mitigating factors and private life details? And before you answer this is what I thought was interesting. They've already made an argument why they wanted to have the death penalty taken off the table. Avi Moskowitz, who's a specialist in the death penalty, has already made a fairly lengthy argument. What is new about this 95-page argument? What do you expect it's going to say?
Well, we don't know yet. I mean, we don't know yet. So first of all, I think Karen's a beautiful writer, so I think we can expect it's going to be very well done. But I think we can expect constitutional challenges. I think we might expect. I think we could expect some psychological basis to not impose the death penalty, maybe a motion to that effect, that kind of plays into her other motion that she made regarding getting more time. I think it could be some procedural motions about how things are going to transpire during the process. I don't know. We won't know till we see it, guys. But I think all that line. Do you have the footnote you can pull up, Lee? But I think all it said was that they needed leave to file pre-trial motions related to the death penalty. Is that what it said? That could be any number of things. That could be substantive or procedural. That's why I'm not trying to be evasive.
I think Michelle might actually have the answer. The previous motion was deemed premature. So I think that was said when Avi Moskowitz filed this big lengthy thing about the judge basically returned with, this is premature. We're not at that point. So maybe this is just a refiling or a little bit more lengthy filing of the original thing that they said premature. We're not talking about the death penalty. Is that possible?
But I mean, I guess it's possible. But remember, they initially said that Karen's response was premature when loudmouth Pam Bondi got on TV and started talking about the death penalty before they even freaking indicted the case or served notice. So they said that was premature. And then Karen, renewed it. And then there was some discussion about whether Avi's arguments were premature. I don't see that being 95 pages. If it's a regurgitation of points previously made, I don't see that being 95 pages. And again, with it being characterized as pretrial motions related to the death penalty, I do think it could be a combination of substantive constitutional arguments and then procedural arguments about other things that are less sexy than the Constitution.
On an aside, and it's funny, I've seen Karen write plenty of motions now, and I've seen Avi Moskowitz write some, and Avi's more factual and a lot more dry and a lot more boring to read. Karen's really good at punctuating things and making statements and repeating things. And I love reading Karen's stuff. And it's funny, the last thing I saw from Avi, I actually said, I think Karen wrote this and Avi signed his name to it, because it sounded like Karen Agnifilo all through the letter. But anyways, that's an aside. You don't have to comment on it, but it looked like Karen wrote it and Avi signed his name to it.
Listen, I say this with love. With love, Karen A is a sassy petty bee, and I love every minute of it. She funny.
She is. And when I read her stuff, she does repeat a lot of stuff to make her point, but it's fun reading her. Like I just enjoy reading her stuff.
She gets some zingers in there too, which I appreciate.
She does. Let's see. Let's put a couple more questions up and then we'll let you go for the night. How much does it hurt the defense that the state case is going first instead of the federal one, and how important is it for the federal to go first?
That's what we were talking about earlier. I mean, I think it can hurt. I mean, it really does hamstring the defense, because anything that they say in that state case is going to be fair game in the federal case, and the stakes are just so much higher in the federal case. You're talking about life versus death. So I do think that it is potentially just really limiting. I'm with Karen on this. I think maybe the court is not fully grasping the position that they're being put in. I think it could be damaging.
Last kind of question here. Do you think Luigi Mangione has any part in writing these motions, or is it 100% by the legal team? Yeah.
No, I think the legal team's writing them. Again, they're going to communicate with their client. They're going to consult with their client. They're even going to strategize with the client. And every client's different too. Some clients are like, listen, you're the lawyer. Whatever you say, I'll listen to you. Keep me abreast of what's going on, and I'm cool. Others just want to be all up in it. So we don't know what kind of client Luigi is. I'm sure he probably has some involvement. It seems, just based on the amount of visitation that he's getting with Karen, that he's probably a little bit more involved than the average criminal defendant. You also have to consider he's got an academic background. He's a thinker. He's a smart kid. You know, you don't always have that type of client necessarily, not in a case like this. So I think he probably has a little bit more involvement than the average criminal defendant might, but I don't think he's back there writing motions.
This one we kind of addressed a little bit. I said we were going to only take one more, but I thought it was interesting. Are there any psych defenses that don't necessarily incriminate the defendant? Wouldn't merely announcing a psych defense be essentially announcing that you did it? And we've kind of talked about this a lot. And yes, essentially the argument essentially is, yeah, my guy did it, but here's why he did it, kind of thing.
Right. It's
I mean,
either
they call it
a legal justification or it's mitigating. It depends the way you present it. But yeah, why would you need to present a psych defense if you didn't do? I'm so confused about the premise of the question.
Right. And that's why it was kind of hard. I mean, like we have talked about it. We liken this a little bit to the what you call crime of passion, right? So if you walk in on your spouse in bed with somebody else and you kill them, yes, you killed them, but a jury will probably say, you know what, we kind of understand why you did it. You lost your mind temporarily. Now, some people say, if you had to cross state lines to go shoot somebody, you can't say you temporarily lost your mind. But as I understand it, the nuances of that defense allows somebody to downward spiral for a while. So if we don't know what was going on for 6 months with Luigi Mangione and he was on a downward mental spiral and was having problems, if they can prove that in court, that would be allowed to have happened over a period of time. It doesn't have to be well, you cross state lines, therefore you can't claim an insanity defense or momentarily lost your mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's a jury question. What does the jury think? What do they believe? Do they find it credible, right?
Yeah. Chappie, thanks for giving me a gift tonight. Chappie always loves to come in here and drop money on me. It's a fantastic day for Chappie Boss when he comes in, and he usually makes me spit things out of. If I drink when I'm reading his things, I spew all over the thing.
So funny. I'm glad.
And he always loves me to do the
Chappie
Ric
Boss
Flair.
that you're supporting Patron. It's good stuff.
All right, everybody, make sure
Patron pays my bills, guys.
Nice. All right, a shameless plug for Patron. Nice. Ali
My husband works for them.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he's the state manager in South Carolina. Everybody drink Patron. Shameless plug.
Nice.
I'm kidding.
That's perfect. Make sure you watch Ali Benevento on TikTok. I've been trying to get her to come over to YouTube, but she's got enough things on her plate to try and launch another platform. So, and it's my mistake tonight. I hate saying my bad. It always sounded horrible, but I almost said my bad, but I should have put you on TikTok, but I just couldn't figure out the logistics at the last minute. But make sure you follow Ali Benevento on TikTok. If you're in South Carolina and you need a criminal defense attorney, look her up. She might be good in your back pocket. Trust me.
Or anywhere. I have.
Oh, that's right. You do
travel.
federal cases. That's right. You do federal cases
travel.
all over.
Yep.
So, yeah, and you won some awards just recently, did you win some more awards? I saw when I was looking at some photos, it seemed like you had like 2 awards, and it seemed like one of them was new. Did you get a new award recently or not?
Maybe. I don't know.
You it's so modest. You get so many awards, you don't even know what they are anymore.
So,
Anyways, and you're also on Court TV regularly
Yes.
now, and they got you coming on as a contributor, they call it.
Yep.
So anyways, everybody loves when you're on here. I still wait for the day when I can get you on here and an audience can actually be worthy of your presence, because we always have these small
Okay.
audiences. I don't know
love
what it is, but it's so amazing you take your time out of your day to do this. Thank you so much for checking in
Lots of
again.
fun.
I'm sure people will talk about this for a long time after your show.
It's
Do you
been
have
fun.
anything
Hope we
last you
can
wanna
do it
say?
again soon. No, I hope we can continue the conversation. I love that things in the case are finally getting moving again. I feel like we had a lot of dead space there for a while. This is exciting. This case is cool. It's novel. It's got a lot of good issues. It's got really good lawyering. I feel like it's got it all. What is it? Like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. This case has got
Yeah.
everything. It's lots of fun. So I hope we can keep it going.
I hope that you will come on and talk to me about it. And I love Karen Agnifilo as a rock star. Again, regardless of how you feel on who
Yeah.
should win or not win, it's fun
Yeah.
watching these lawyers go toe to toe. It's amazing.
I agree.
So, all right. Have a good evening, everybody, and have a good night.
Thanks, guys.